Good day, everyone. Welcome to Grow Your Health Academy. I have with me today again Dr. Laiqha Khadri from Bangalore, India. And as a follow-on, the fourth week of Nourish, Dr. Laiqha is going to teach us about micronutrients specifically for mucosal health. And I'll let her get into all the details, but the mucosa is the barrier tissue between the inside world and the outside world. And so it functions as a really big driver or vehicle for our immune system. So I'll allow her to give you the details. If you haven't met her yet, go back and watch the first video. This woman is full of wisdom and knowledge, and I'm very grateful to have her here with us today. Thank you, Laiqha.
Thank you, Julie. It was nice, listening from you. So let's start with micronutrients. So last class we have spoken about nutrition and what are the aspects of nutrition and how the food gets metabolized and the components have different effects on the immune system and the normal functioning of the organs and homeostasis of the system. So for the normal functioning of the body, nutrients are essential for our system. So basically nutrients are divided into macronutrients and micronutrients. So as we all know, macronutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, fats. So these are the major component of food we take in, we eat, and we will discuss more about the micronutrients today. So micronutrients basically are the important components of the food which helps in digesting or assimilation of the macronutrients which we eat. So basically micronutrients includes vitamins and minerals. They are necessary for energy production, immune function, blood clotting, and maintenance of the biological electrolytes, the fluids. Now, since micronutrients are not produced in our body, they are called as essential nutrients. So most of the micronutrients are not, has to be supplemented to the diet or to other sources, external sources. So we will be mostly talking about the vitamins and minerals today and what are the functions of these vitamins, minerals in immune system, building up of the body, building up of the muscles, growth, then maintenance of the biological fluids, the electrolytes, much importance in the, and it has been in the forefront in adverse times, like the time when we had a lot of inflammation, that is in the COVID time. So vitamin C helps again in formation of collagen. So collagen is again a very important extracellular component which binds the cells together, and it also helps in neurotransmission. So these factors which are affected by vitamin C has a prominent, gives a prominent role to vitamin C. So this comes under the water-soluble vitamins. So vitamin B complexes and vitamin C. So these are the water-soluble complex micronutrients, which is utilized and which is excreted easily. And next, coming to the fat-soluble vitamins. Now, the fat-soluble vitamins are again very important micronutrients. So these are vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. Now, vitamin A is functional in proper vision and organ function. Now, vitamin A deficiency leads to the lower retinol content. So This can be supplemented through carotenoid containing vegetables, and then it can be supplemented through fish, meat, and dairy products. Vitamin D has a prominent role in immune function, growth, and then calcium absorption. Now, calcium absorption, bone formation, and proper teeth formation. So this vitamin D again is a fat soluble vitamin. Vitamin E it is an antioxidant, uh, and it protects the cells from the damages which occur. Then vitamin K, it helps in blood clotting and bone development. Now, why we say these fat soluble vitamins are important and uh, they are essential for the proper functioning of immune system is uh, now these vitamins which are fat soluble, they are processed in the liver. So when you take in these vitamins, they are mostly stored, and then they are processed, utilized in the liver. So here they have an effect on balancing the homeostasis of anti-inflammatory and inflammatory cytokine release from the liver cell. Now, these fat soluble vitamins cannot be recommended wholesale for the people. I mean, if they overdose with these vitamins, they will have side effects. So when we say water soluble vitamins, they have less side effects because they are water soluble and excretable easily. Now, these fat soluble vitamins, when they are overdosed, they are stored in the liver. Then in the liver, uh, they will have more of anti-inflammatory effect, and they reduce the inflammation to an extent where the acute inflammation is compromised, so which helps in growth, wound healing, and these uh, uh, functional body.
The nasal and the nasal pharyngeal mucosa, and we look at ways of supporting that. Zinc, we've talked a lot about that. It's a trace element, but it's critically important for the binding of the cells, right, in the mucosa. So during times of higher viral exposure, indoor times, when transmission's higher, is zinc something that you would supplement in addition to your diet? I mean, I know it's hard to give these universal statements because diet matters, metabolism matters, basal metabolism, as we talked about last week, but we have to generalize some things for people. So in times of higher viral exposure, what would be, your top 3 or 4 things to do to take care of this respiratory mucosa?
In these COVID times, when you're asking, when actually all these trace elements and these micronutrients were required before COVID also.
Yeah.
But we have started understanding more after this. So what recommendations, a few generalized recommendations. I cannot be very specific and a very generalized one, but few of those things which I feel appropriate is uh, to keep the mucosal lining healthy. First to hydration. So we have spoken about hydration a lot before. So because of the dust particles and all pathogens, our mucosal linings are secreting a lot of antibodies and anti-inflammatory molecules, and interferons are secreted. Mostly the interferon part is the essential component, the first defense for the pathogens entering into the respiratory tract. Now, when interferons are secreted, those are, scarring. It causes drying of the mucosal line. So, hydration part is essential. So, it has to be the mucosal line has to be kept hydrated for this reason. And next, keeping the mucosal lining intact again. So, copper and zinc are recommended. Now, how we in my community and in my patient circle, what I suggest them is to supplement copper and zinc through the TDS, the total dissolved solid in the water. So whatever water they are drinking, so instead of taking supplements in the form of pills or any other form, so drinking water, so it keeps them hydrated, and also it will supplement those essential trace elements. So having the TDS, the total dissolved solids containing copper and zinc, so recommended by the certain health authorities. So this will help their mucosal lining be kept intact, so that all the viruses, all the effects of the viruses or any of the respiratory tract pathogens will be neutralized. So the mucosal lining health is kept healthy, and then hydration is there, and then their natural immunity is boosted. So this is a natural process of keeping the mucosal lining healthy, instead of going for any sprays or any kind of nasal infusions. They can include as nasal saline for hydration. They can use. Otherwise, keeping the body hydrated with supplements is uh, uh, sufficient, uh, you know, prophylaxis for their initial concern.
Right. Okay. So the hydration being twofold, the hydration being what we drink, and you're recommending to your patients and community that the adding a bit of zinc and copper should be done by adding it to the water. So you mean like a tincture?
No, it comes. So we are using there are water filters which comes with TDS addition. So there are water
Oh,
filters.
and zinc
So
is
there
being
are,
added through your water filter?
yes. So we have this new water filter which is recently introduced just 6 months back. So it is a
India?
patented version. Yeah, yeah, it's in India. It's a patented product which has been launched 6 months back. So we have that water filter which adds copper and zinc to the water while it is filtering. So we have to just adjust the TDS of the dissolved solids.
Wow.
So it adds up magnesium, sodium, then zinc, copper. Zinc copper is a new addition. Zinc copper was not there before. So we just had magnesium, potassium, sodium added to the water as it gets filtered. Now recently it is introduced that they add also copper and zinc. So this
Wow.
helps keep their mucosal lining hydrated as well as supplemented with these nutrients.
It keeps the mucosal lining intact, right?
Right, right.
With the binding of the cells,
Binding
not just the respiratory, but the gut tract too.
That tract too.
Huh.
So that is one of the essential, components. And people don't have to think of supplementing as an extra source.
Yes, it's brilliant. We don't do that here, to my knowledge. So in fact, North America loves reverse osmosis, which actually removes everything, removes it
right.
all, right? So now you're drinking essentially denuded water with no minerals, unless you do the add back. So that's really interesting. I use a tincture. It's minerals, but I just add it to my water to be able to take it. But we don't have that done on a public health level, that's for sure. So that's very interesting. We can maybe inside this group investigate what opportunities we have for that here. Okay, so then I know you and I have talked a lot about, so there's the hydration from what we consume and making sure we have the right amounts of the trace elements and the inorganic minerals. But then there's also the hydration that happens, like you said, with a nasal saline or with hydrating over top of hot water, or basically cleaning the mucosa to keep it clean. And I think you've been the most instrumental for me in learning about that. I think it's part of your culture much more than it's part of ours. And when we keep that clean, we allow the mucosa to not be, well, dirty, really, with dust and and I'm going to open the floor here to other people to ask questions. So I've implemented daily cleaning of the mucosa for my children, particularly during, we'll say, quote, flu season, indoor time. And then we swim a lot, obviously in the summer, so that helps. But my question to you is one a little bit more technical. When we talk about interferon as being one of the first lines of defense at the mucosa, could you just elaborate a little bit on the function of interferon and where it comes from in the body and what it does?
Interferons is the first defense in the respiratory tract. So once a pathogen or any pollen or pathogen enters into through the nasopharyngeal part, and then the first this interferon secretion will neutralize this toxins of pathogens and neutralize the whatever side effects which is caused by the dust and the pathogen. Now interferons secretion will decrease by age. So interferons is the first defense in the immune system. So once the interferons are produced, then it is neutralized. Now, once interferons are not synthesized in higher quantities, then the other antibodies are secreted by the mucosal lining. So that is, IgA is the first antibody secreted, and then IgM, then IgG. So all these antibodies are secreted, and this defense mechanism also fails to neutralize the pathogen. Then the adaptive immune system gets activated. So this is a process. So initially, if the interferons are secreted and neutralize the pathogen, there is no much, innate immune responses seen. So if the pathogens are a little more higher in quantities and higher concentration of pathogen enter into the nasopharyngeal route, then there are secretions of antibodies. Then if these antibodies are not sufficient for neutralizing the pathogens, then there is adaptive immune system activating. Now, adaptive immune system will have a complex of cells which gets activated through the trigger of interleukin 6 from the liver.
Okay.
So meanwhile, the pathogen enters into the gastrourinary tract. So that is the gut lining, and then it releases toxins, enters into the liver. So the liver secretes IL-6 and lot more interleukins. So this is one of the pathways which I am highlighting. So there are many pathways which are happening during these times. So it will also affect the vagus nerve. It will have an effect on the blood-brain barrier during meanwhile when this adaptive immune response is triggered. So adaptive immune responses, TH cells, that is helper T cells, cytotoxic T cells, the natural killer cells, so a set of cytokines, a set of interleukins, all the cells get activated. Then we see a burst of immune responses. And then if this immune response again is not regularized, so it is not regulated, then it causes the cytokine storm. So the cells which are proliferating, the B cells, T cells, so they start producing more and more cytokines. So this exaggerates the whole process, which has to be actually stopped at the initial level. So this leads to a lot more exaggeration of immune system, triggering the cytokines and then leading to multiple organ failures and sepsis and complications.
Okay,
So this is a general procedure, and there are a lot of pathways which are involved. So discussing those pathways will take a lot more time.
A lot more time and a lot more detail. And so if I may, and you correct me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adele. I have a question regarding this actually applies to quite a few people that I work with. And when vitamin D is low, okay, and there's been tons of literature and exploration of vitamin D over the last 2 years, which is great. And some people have these, chronically low levels of vitamin D. And we know that we can't just supplement anything in isolation to restore balance. We have to do this, very synergistically. But for these people that are chronically low in vitamin D and are taking vitamin D regularly, and not just like the 800 IUs that Health Canada maybe says, but they've opted through their own research and blood tests to be taking, let's say, 5,000 a day, and their levels just are not coming up. Do you have kind of insights about any particular things that they might, obviously they have to look further because they're individuals, but what are some of the clues you might have to give them crumbs on the way on that little journey?
The vitamin D is a very essential component for working off the enzymes, and it in itself is being defined as a hormone.
Mm-hmm.
It has an effect on most of the cellular regulation. Calcium absorption. Now, calcium absorption is why we highlight calcium absorption and vasoconstriction of the blood vessels. Now, calcium is very, very important in most of the physiological processes. As I said, if there is no calcium, if there is deficiency in calcium, then there will be no secretion of hormones. So calcium is very essential. So hormones are nothing but proteins which are synthesized, and they are they are enclosed within vesicles within the cell. So unless there are calcium increase in the cytoplasm of cells, these hormones are not released. So it is important in neurotransmission. It is important in release of proteins. It is important in immune regulations. So proteins are nothing but cytokines, interleukins, TNF, NFKB, all these are proteins. So these proteins have to be released. They have to be synthesized and released by the cell. So unless there is calcium in the cell, these proteins will not be released from the cell. So there will be no availability of these proteins for the immune system to function properly. Now, the calcium absorption is directly dependent on vitamin D and vitamin K. So vitamin D has to be present at an optimal level in the human body. Now, when you consume vitamin D, so orally, so most of the vitamin D is not, absorbed, and it is not elevated in the blood. We don't see the absorption and elevation. The concentration is not increasing, though there is a lot of consumption of vitamin D to supplement. So one of the reasons is, again, the toxin buildup in the the digestive system. Now the toxin buildup will.
Hi, everybody. How are you? I have a couple of sort of specific questions, not so much along the analogy that Julie's just talking about how the show takes place. So specific questions for you are, when you say something like brittle nails and hair is a vitamin B7 deficiency, would you suggest to someone who has brittle nails and hair to supplement with vitamin B7 in isolation? As a supplement, not as getting it from food, but would you suggest that?
See, brittle hairs and nails is, they are caused due to the deficiency of B7 when we say. It is just supplementing B7 will not do the whole process reverse. So it has already caused a step of, uh, metabolic disharmony, and there is a lot of, you know, dyshomeostasis which has already occurred because of the deficiency of vitamin B7. So rectifying all the system and supplementing B7 is essential. So what happens is, say for example, vitamin B7 was deficient, then vitamin B7 is one of the coenzymes for a protein which has to be synthesized in the body for proper formation of nails and hair. So say for example, keratin proteins are produced, uh, they were not producing, which was the brittle nails and hair. Now you have to supplement. So just putting back vitamin B7 will not reverse the whole effect. So the person has to supplement with the proteins. They have to start. They have their metabolism has to be rectified, and then supplementing with B7 along with all the other vitamins which are essential for synthesis and proper metabolism of the macronutrients are present in that particular person. Then it is a procedure. It is not just take a pill of vitamin B7 and to be rectified. It is not as simple as that. So the damage which is caused by vitamin B7 has to be rectified, and then the vitamin B7 supplementation may help restore those proteins which is lost by the person.
Okay. Something else you mentioned was, you mentioned long COVID, and then I missed the part about what you suggested. Was it due to zinc and vitamin C?
Long COVID is a process. I mean, it is a side effect of the diseases, the inflammation which is caused. So we cannot say only inflammation. So COVID is, I cannot say COVID is a specific respiratory. I mean, when we say respiratory disease caused by a specific virus, so it is a very broad disease. I mean, it is a disease which causes side effect to almost all the organs in our body. So you cannot say SARS-CoV-2 infected brain, SARS-CoV-2 infected heart, or infected kidney, or infected lung. So it is a cause. So this particular virus which we are speaking about, which cause, it is a cause for a multiple disease. So it is a multiple organ disease, which is triggered by one pathogen. So
Right.
when we say long COVID, it depends on each person. Say for example, there's one person who is deficient in some different vitamins, and another person is not same. The other person may be deficient in some minerals. So the third person is deficient in some other things. So this trigger will have different effects in different individuals. Some may have neurological side effects. Some may have cardiological side effects. Some may have liver side effects. Some may develop kidney side effects. So it depends on what is the situation of that person's physiology. So long COVID is not a general statement. You cannot say long COVID is this. So long COVID is different for different individuals.
Right.
So you cannot say long COVID is only neurological disease. It is not a generalized statement. It is not like that. So say when I say certain specific nutrients have to be supplemented for a long COVID patient, so it doesn't mean that this is a new universal statement. It is not that zinc and copper is a remedy for everybody who is suffering from long COVID. So
Right.
it is not like that. So people who are suffering from the major deficiencies, so those are highlighted. So it's just those which are highlighted. It may be deficiency in calcium, it may be deficiency in magnesium, it may be in selenium. So there may be deficiencies, but major populations of the generalized people, the people who are affected by COVID, so they will have deficiencies in zinc, copper, vitamin D, vitamin C. So these are just highlighted.
Okay.
It is not that only these are the essential required components by these people, and this will cure long COVID. It is not
Right.
from the side. So there will be no availability of these proteins for the immune system to function properly. Now, the calcium absorption is directly dependent on vitamin D and vitamin K. So vitamin D has to be present at an optimal level in the human body. Now, when you consume vitamin D, so orally, so most of the vitamin D is not, absorbed, and it is not elevated in the blood. We don't see the absorption and elevation. The concentration is not increasing, though there is a lot of consumption of vitamin D to supplement. So one of the reasons is, again, the toxin buildup in the the digestive system. Now the toxin buildup will it creates a barrier for absorption of vitamin D. So it will not allow the vitamin D to be absorbed by the cell. So it will then again will be excreted, or it will not be utilized properly as it has to be. So the vitamin D has to enter into the liver, and then it should be processed, and the normal procedure is not followed. The toxin buildup in the digestive tract will hinder the normal process of vitamin D functioning and calcium absorption. So all these will have in turn effect on most of the physiological processes. So vitamin D is one of the factors whose deficiency will lead to increased levels of IL-6, leading to chronic inflammation. So IL-6 has to be kept in check in the liver, and most of the interleukins. I'm not mentioning most of the other interleukins because it will become a very complicated process. So IL-6 and most of the other interleukins and cytokines are kept in check by the vitamin D. So again, vitamin D, deficiency increases all the cytokines, and it is easier for the escalation of these cytokines during the COVID times, leading to sepsis. So most of the patients who are ending up in hospital because of sepsis are diagnosed to have lesser vitamin D as compared to those who can manage their symptoms on their own.
Right. Yeah. And I think that begs the question of, early on, for sure, it got thrown out as a hypothesis that people with low vitamin D, well, it's been evidenced people with low vitamin D are at higher risk of severe COVID. But the question then became, were they capable of elevating their vitamin D stores, Or was the fact that their mechanisms and their metabolism and their inability to raise that level is what actually put them at risk? So supplementation alone can't solve the problem, right? So, but what's interesting here with this whole calcium, the importance of the calcium piece in being able to release the hormones is this is a picture I see in people who already have cortisol that's low and adrenals in overdrive and hormonal imbalances already. So then they have already signs of a calcium, insufficiency. And I even wonder too about the bacterial, the commensal bacteria of the gut in their role of absorbing vitamin D too, right? And so it's an interesting picture for people. And right now a critically important one. So if there's no other questions from people, I'm going to wrap up and just say thank you, Laiqha, for your generosity, for your knowledge. And we hope to have you back here in the Academy for more discussions and more podcasts, just more learning. Many thanks to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Have a good sleep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, bye. Thank you.